Hello.
This is Natalie from FASD Hope. So she's also a podcaster. So she has a podcast, FASD Hope, where she interviews super awesome people to talk about
Like
lots
you.
of
Like you.
yes, gossip. Yep. Only the best people.
That's right.
But you guys talk about FASD, but also other topics around FASD, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So we're talking about FASD and homeschooling. So what are some reasons that you find FASD to be a good fit for homeschooling to be a good fit for FASD? What are kind of the perks for your family?
So we started almost 7 years ago, and for us, it was really like the ultimate accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
We really just found that with homeschooling, you can tailor the levels to meet the needs of your kid where they're at. And you can also, we love the hashtag focus on your strengths, hashtag nurture the strengths.
Yeah.
You can really use the child's teens strengths to help them learn, to be a part of that learning process. The other thing, many reasons for us, we were able to homeschool around our son's medical needs at the time.
Yeah.
We were also able to homeschool, and you and I have talked about this, about, if they're having a bad brain day,
Mm-hmm.
where they're just not able to retrieve information. Homeschooling is legal in all 50 states, and it's legal in all provinces in Canada. However, you need to know your state's rules.
Mm-hmm.
Each state has different rules, and I've talked to you about homeschooling in Ohio. It's a little different than homeschooling where we're at in North Carolina. But it is legal. And to me, really, homeschooling let us discover what our son's gift was, which was carpentry and coding. He loves computers. Yeah. And I know with your guys, you're finding, especially your one guy really likes cooking and culinary. Mm-hmm. And that's really something that you can do, not only as electives, but you can incorporate into their daily learning, So for us, it made sense, Yeah. And it really, I think you, the parent or the caregiver, your child the best, better than anybody. I mean, you do. So a lot of people are apprehensive about homeschooling because they think, they have to follow a certain curriculum or they have to do something. Really, they just need to, abide by your state's or province's regulations. And then you're basically the leader, you're the person that's in charge. And I know you and I have talked about the other great thing is that you can outsource, subjects, you can outsource testing, you can outsource evaluations, you can outsource a lot of things too, and again, you got to check with your state or your province. But, so for us, obviously our son wanted to be a carpenter. I'm not a carpenter. I'd love to be, but I'm not. So we were able to outsource, the last 2 years when he really focused on carpentry. Of course, we did our academics, but we were able to outsource that to apprenticeship teachers that understood how he learned and understood how he processed information. Yeah. So that was just a huge blessing, and he's continued, even though he's done, we graduated him from homeschooling. He's still, does his apprenticeships because we kind of see that as like his trade school, really. That's the best way he gets his information. So, honestly, we're working on some stuff, and I've got stuff coming out in the following month about, homeschooling and why it's such a good fit for kids and teens with FASD. We're going to be talking about it a lot on FASD Hope. We've got some, experts coming in the homeschool field. So honestly, the advantages far outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it sounds really scary. And the outsourcing piece is important because I think a lot of times, it reminds me of something Jeff Noble tells me a lot when I'm prepping for trainings. He says, you only have to know more than your audience. Which maybe that applies to homeschooling also, right? Like, you don't have to be like a math genius. You just have to be able to master the skill. And so for me, things that I use curriculums for are things like math, where I'm like, I don't know how to teach like each individual step in this skill, right? And so I need a curriculum for that. Or like we do handwriting, because that's something my kids want to do.
Which is great.
Yes, yeah. And so I use a curriculum to break down the steps. But like if I'm going to teach social studies or something, like I can just like do my own thing, and like I feel more mastered in that area. Ohio has a really amazing homeschool scholarship, and so if you have an IEP, and you can get an IEP without attending public school, then you, based on the category in the ETR, your child gets a scholarship of different amounts. And so we have outside speech and outside reading, and that's not an area that I have to specialize in, so I can focus on other stuff.
Absolutely.
I think also we have some misconceptions as to what learning is. We picture learning as like sitting still, at attention, learning arithmetic, like we picture kind of more, and I say traditional schooling, but really that model of schooling is relatively new.
Right.
Historically, we would learn more like homeschoolers do.
So homeschooling, to dispel some myths, homeschooling is not schooling at home, virtual schooling, pandemic schooling. It's not that at all. I mean, even though homeschoolers now, we have to abide by our state's, regulations for gatherings and stuff like that.
Right.
There's a lot of freedom. Our kids don't sit in front of the computer for 3-4 hours a day, and we really incorporate a lot of, extracurricular kind of stuff, activities, field trips. We used to have what we called Field Trip Fridays, which is really cool because it's more active learning. It really is not like what virtual schooling is. I think that's like the first myth. The second myth that I wanted to like just dismiss is that with homeschooling, you have the flexibility to change if something's not working for your kid. And I've done that quite a few times. So like, if I picked a math curriculum or a math, workbook or something at the time, there were several times where I was like, you know what, this isn't going to work. And I need something that meets his needs better, and I'm finding that with our daughter, she's neurotypical and she's 5 and she just started. And already like there's some things that in her current curriculum, I'm like, I'm going to tweak this, you have that freedom to do that. And the other really awesome thing about homeschooling is, most states and provinces have it's usually 180 days, like you're supposed to do a year, 180 days or a number of hours. So the cool thing, the myth is like, okay, you have to do it Monday through Friday from 9 to 2 or whatever. No, you can do whatever you want. If your kid's not having a great day and needs a break, you can school on Saturday. You can school in the evening, if your kid, like for our son, his best time was, like right after lunch, because his sleep has always been an issue. For our daughters, sometimes she likes to school at night, so it really is, it's not, you have to do it at this time and at this date. So, and the other myth again is that you have to do it all by yourself, which you don't, even if you're a single parent, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You can have relatives help you. I have a friend who's her older son is helping her one day with, homeschooling her younger son, and it's great, if you can really incorporate, and again, I always say, just check with the laws, check with your state's regs and stuff, but you can incorporate a lot of different people into their homeschooling experience. So
I know some families hire tutors, and there are co-ops, and some of them are virtual too, where kids are taking classes online, but it's still, and some co-ops are both, it's in person and virtual. There's OutSchool. There's just so many different options where it doesn't have to be you. And I think with your timing thing, that's a great point, because somebody mentioned earlier today about what if you're a single parent and you're working, and although the childcare aspect of it is difficult because like the kid's got to go somewhere, and right now it's a really weird time, but there are people who only school at night because that's when they have the time. And so it is more flexible than I would have thought, and the expectations are different. I think I had a lot of biases because we did not decide to do it because this was our dream. I think most of us with kids with disabilities, decide to do it out of the desperation. Like, we cannot get FAPE for them. And so by pulling our kids out of school, now I'm their FAPE, right? Like, I'm the one providing a free and appropriate private education.
Well, the other thing too is with homeschooling, there's no homework. When you're done with homeschooling, you're done with homeschooling. So like before, another big reason is we'd come home, you know, our son was like in the later grades of earlier elementary when we started, you know, beginning, middle, later grades. And he would come home with like 3 hours of homework. And even though we had a 504 in place, we were getting, you know, they were like, oh, he's still got to do it. I'm like, no, he can't, you know, because he would melt down. And when he realized, you know, again, it was a big transition, you know, when you transition from regular school to homeschool, it's a transition, prepare yourself. But the big selling point that you can tell your kids is that there's no homework. Right. You know, unless they want to have it. So, for example, our son was really into computer coding and learning about ethical hacking and stuff like that. So, you know, that was his homework, you know, that was stuff he did when he was done with what we needed to do. So, yeah, no, that's another great thing about homeschooling is there's no homework. You're done, you're done.
Yeah, I think a lot of us struggle with homework with our kids, and so we picture homeschooling as just going to be one big fight, but it's different. And I'm going to talk about deschooling tomorrow, and I think that introducing that concept will help because that's definitely a fear. I'm like, I can't even do like one worksheet of homework. Like, we can't school at home, but my kids are excited to go to school now.
I know. I'm so happy. I love hearing how your guys are doing with homeschooling. And I mean, I know I was like one of the first people you talked to about it. And it's funny because like, if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, where you take like the blue pill and the red pill, it's like, it really is like a different mindset. It really is like, especially, you know, we know as parents of kids with an FASD, there's a mindset shift in that too. It's like a paradigm shift. It's the same with homeschooling. You know, it's a paradigm shift. It's like these preconceived, you know, what people think about it, but really it's a great accommodation, you know? Yeah. And it's a really, for us, we would have never known our son was like this gifted carpenter if he had stayed in regular school, because, you know, all the schools that we were near didn't have any type of program like that. So the other cool thing too to remember about homeschooling is that you can do 2 different tracks. Most states, when you get a high school diploma, they have like a college prep track, or they have what we did, which is called an occupational course of study. And that's usually for kids who like either want to work out of high school, or they want to go to trade school or something like that. So it's important to know that too, because, you know, those credit requirements are different than, you know, college prep. So
and in Ohio there are no credit requirements, so I don't even have to provide a transcript. It's just when we decide we graduate. But that was a big selling point too, because in high school there are really regimented requirements to graduate, and we weren't going to be able to meet them without like losing ourselves in the process, and that's just not fair. So okay, so where can people connect with you? And they're following your podcast on like every platform, right? It's everywhere.
Yes, so FASD Hope is our podcast series. We launched it this month. We're so excited about it. You can find it on, you know, just about every podcast platform: Podbean, Apple, Spotify, whatnot. You can also go to fasdhope.com. We have not only our podcast, but we're beginning to have resource pages. We're having a homeschool section. You can also email me at natalie@fasdhope.com. We are going to start homeschool consulting and homeschool like mentorships and stuff like that. You know, and then we're having quite a few episodes coming up that I'm excited about that addresses specifically homeschooling and FASD.
So people have to follow you to learn more. You're such a great resource.
Yes, please. So on Insta, we're at FASD Hope. On Facebook, we're FASD Hope 1. And on Pinterest, where you can find some great ideas for homeschooling and FASD, we're FASD Hope 1. So
perfect. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care.